welcome back to one of Barren Magazine's interviews with our authors. I am Madeleine Corley, one of the poetry editors here at Barren, and I am excited to introduce today one of our poets who is featured in issue 17, Chimera. Her name is Grace Q. Song, and her poem Motherworld appeared in our Chimera issue 17, and she is a Chinese-American writer from New York. Her poetry and fiction have been published or are forthcoming in Glass, a journal for poetry, The Margins, Barren Magazine, Rust and Moth, Storm Cellar, Passages North, Pank, and elsewhere. A high school senior, she has been recognized by the Interlochen Arts Academy, Hollis University, Pennsylvania State University, the National Young Arts Foundation, and the Scholastic Arts and Writing Awards. In her spare time, she edits for Polyphony Lit and Bitter Melon Magazine. She has also been nominated for the Best of Net, Best Microfiction, and the Pushcart Prize. Welcome, Grace. We're so excited to have you today.
Such an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I am so jazzed to talk to you. So, got the intro. I stumbled a little bit, but I'm feeling good. Okay, so the first question, I really want to start with Motherworld, the poem that was in Barren. And it's a duplex, and duplexes are something that's new to me, and it's like with Jericho Brown's form. And so what inspired you to write this poem with the content, but also specifically this vehicle of style and form?
Yeah, so I first learned the duplex over my summer writing camp this year. Mm-hmm. And when I first read it, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is awesome. Like this is brilliant. Like I need to write one of these. So I started writing a couple during like my writing workshop during that summer, and then I produced Motherworld. And I think what really drew me to the duplex is that it forces you, the structure forces you to really like expand, because the second line of each stanza has to be something new, something different. But at the same time, it also limits you because you have to go back to that first line at the end. And so you have like this contradiction in itself in the form. And because of that, I feel like it allows me to also like contradict in the poem, to show nuances, to be really complex. And I think I also love how it's like a sonnet and a blues poem, and also a ghazal. How do you?
Ghazal. I actually don't know. I know how to spell it, so that's,
yeah.
I'm like, I know it when I see it. I'm like, oh, that's the thing.
Yeah. But I feel like it's like the baby of all these awesome forms, and it's just like really cool to play around with. And I feel like, especially for Motherworld, it really allowed me to sort of be really complex, and also show, like, touch upon all these different topics, like the mother and the father and the deer and like the birds. And so yeah, I feel like it's a lot. There's like so much opportunity, but at the same time you're also being confined, and I think that juxtaposition is just really, really fascinating.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've written one duplex, and I was like, yes, I did it, but I don't think it's very great.
The point is, I can't exactly hear you.
Oh, can you hear me? Am I muted? Did I mute myself? Can you hear me now?
Very faint.
Here, let me just.
Oh, it's better now.
Dogs. Can you hear me better?
Yeah.
Okay. So dogs, apologies. So I've written one duplex, and I've been trying out pantoums. I haven't tried a ghazal, or however you say it. But yeah, I find forms like that where it requires you, because like you're saying, duplexes, it has a constraint to it, but it also allows opportunity to really ruminate on a phrase or a concept and how you can portray it in multiple ways in such a short space. So yeah, I think it's a really cool form, and I'm excited to write more. And I love Motherworld in our issue.
Thank you so much.
It's fantastic. So okay, question 2. So are there poets specifically you look to, kind of thinking specifically with Jericho Brown, obviously, I mean, writing Motherworld with his form. Are there any specifically that you feel admire, that influence you, that have helped you grow? Any of the above? I know online you have a list of both poems that you love and authors that you really enjoy. And so I guess I'm more asking what makes them like your tops that you look to.
Yeah. I think some authors I really love Louis Gluck. I butchering these names. I love Marie Howie. She was like the poet like laureate for New York for a time. And I love Sharon Olds. And then I guess I really gravitate towards poets that have a narrative quality in their work, that also talk about family. And I love Alex Dimitrov, and I also love Richie Hoffman for like literally the opposite reason, because Alex Dimitrov, his poems are just so long and it's like very, very distinct. And then his style is just also very, very distinct. And I love like whenever I read his poems, I feel like I'm in a dream, or like I'm on drugs, because it's just like so it just gives that vibe. And then I love Richie Hoffman for the exact opposite reason, because his poems are so short and they're so compact, but they're also so like powerful. And I like aspire to be like that, like just write a short poem and like boom, and like yeah. So I also love Ada Limon, also for her narrative poetry. And I also really love Natalie Diaz, because she talks about her brother. Well, her work is a lot like mine, in which it's just like very family themed, and then she talks a lot about her brother. And I also talk a lot about my sister, and like yeah, so there's a lot of like family dynamics in her poetry that I really resonated with. I also love Nicole Seeley, Camille T. Dungy, I think she wrote Trophic Cascade, which is like a nature poem, and it's like and I love nature and animals, and so yeah, so that poem really resonated with me.
I'm gonna have to check that one out. I've never heard that. I've never read it. So
You definitely have to. It's so awesome.
Right after this, like right after we hang up, that's what I'm doing. I love discovering new artists.
I feel like your audio's cutting out again.
Dang it, no. Can you hear me now?
Very faint.
Shoot. I don't know how to make it louder. I can talk closer. I'll do this. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, that's better.
Okay, so I read online when I was perusing your website. I read that much of your writing originated from Wattpad. And actually, I didn't know about Wattpad. I knew about fanfiction.net, and that's because one of my roommates in college, she took a fanfiction class, and she would tell me all about what she was learning. And I'm really fascinated by those origins, because I read Hannah Cohen. She wrote about the last fanfiction she wrote the other day. And so I read that piece and was reminded of, like, she was expressing how she wrote so much fan fiction when she was growing up and how that influenced her work today. And so I was curious how you feel that origin on Wattpad and writing those stories and those novels contributed specifically to your poetry today.
Yeah, so I grew up reading fiction and stories, and so I naturally, when I started writing, I was writing longer works. And so I feel like when I transitioned from fan fiction to poetry, that narrative quality carried over this storytelling kind of aesthetic, I guess you can say. And so I feel like my poetry is not like, if you compare my poetry to say like Christina Im or Stephanie Chang, I can only think of them off the top of my head right now, because they're like their writing style is like the most different from mine. I feel like it's not like the way that we use language, and I feel like the way that their poetry is like very image based. And I don't want to say that my poetry isn't, but it's just like it's just more like narrative. I don't really know how to describe it any other way.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I think there's definitely like they can commingle, and they do commingle, but I definitely feel that there is a vehicle of narrative and a vehicle of image, and some people prefer one to the other. No, I get that completely. Okay, so this year has been a great one for you. It's been, at least again, this is me perusing on your website, which everybody should go check out Grace's website. I have it, oh, I have it written. It's Grace Q. Yeah, okay. I was like, I couldn't remember if the Q was in there or not. graceqsong.weebly.com. Check it out. So I was combing through your poems, and I remember when I read how loneliness was invented at the Shallow Ends when it released earlier this year in January. And one of the cool things as I was reading through, it was that rediscovery of not knowing that I knew your work, and remembering distinctly reading that piece and being like, and I remember Torrin A. Greathouse talking about how a poem that fits in a tweet that's so impactful. Like I remember that discussion when it came out, and it was so cool seeing it and getting to experience it over again and remembering that initial meeting with it. And so how, maybe not this year specifically, but can be. So how has publishing and writing been for you this year or anytime? Some say they're different beasts. They feed different parts of like being a writer. So I guess I was curious how you feel they relate, if they do, or if they're just parallels, what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think so. I'm an editor for 2 different literary magazines, so I feel like I get the behind the scenes aspect, but I also get the writer aspect, and I feel like both are really, really helpful in terms of understanding, like not basing my work on acceptances, because I know that there are so many reasons why editors reject works, and not just because your work sucks. And so I feel like that really helped me. And in terms of publishing and writing, I mean, it's just, they both have ups and downs. I feel like sometimes you just get like a slew of rejections for a long period of time, and then you get like maybe three acceptances, and that's like a lot in that time frame. And then you also have periods of time where you're just producing and writing, and it's like the flood, and sometimes you're just like, you just go into a writing slump, and then you become like a hermit. And so I think I kind of just let it flow how it is. Kind of currently in a writing slump, and although I would like to write a poem, it's kind of just I'm just letting it be. And then I know that when I'm ready, when my brain just feels ready, it will write a poem. And in terms of publishing and like getting rejections, I feel like in the beginning I was pretty like distraught over it. But I feel like as time goes on, and then you kind of like build a thick skin. And then I always joke that like getting rejected from lit mags would prepare me from rejections from colleges. So like I'm good.
So I do see that playing out. I'm looking like job applications in this adult world. And I'm like, okay, I'm not happy when I get them, but I'm like, I get rejected in like a day sometimes from magazines. And I'm like, you know what? Like, shoulder brush off. This is nothing to my day. So I do think, I think I feel like it primes you. Sorry, I feel like it primes you for the other things that you face rejection in. And this is me choosing to do it. Nobody's telling me that I have to be submitting workplaces. So I think that when you have to submit workplaces for other reasons, you're like, oh, I do this. I literally put myself in this scenario on my own volition. I'm good. I'm ready. I'm learning.
Yeah, like I literally got a rejection this morning, and I sent them and I sent my pieces yesterday. So it's like, boom, 24 hours rejection.
I was like, hello, okay. See ya. So yeah, I think, and like you were saying about being a writer on top of an editor, that is something that I think has really shaped the way I also view submission, and I also view writing. There are pieces that I've written that I'm like, I don't think anybody would want this, but that's okay because I liked writing it. And that's like, it being out there doesn't mean that it's any less of a poem that I've written. But I don't know if I would have known that I don't even know if I would have figured that out as early as I did had I not been involved in some back end process with a magazine. So yeah, it it does give you that knowledge of, oh, they rejected the work. I don't immediately go into, oh, it's a horrible poem, I should delete it off of everything and never touch it again. Which is, I've been there before, and thankfully I think I don't do that to myself anymore.
Yeah.
But it's definitely from that duality, which I appreciate in the same way you do. Okay, so next question. I'm really not a fan of asking what's your favorite or what's your most or anything that's at the top. I know I watch kids, when I say, what's your favorite show? They like freak out because they have to decide between things. So I don't like it. I'm trying to change the way I ask that question. So I guess what I want to ask you is of a pivotal experience that you've had, whether that was with a mentor or a piece or a moment specifically in your writing career that you feel like kind of tweaked the river or like changed the way the path was going to go, at least that you remember.
Yeah, I guess the most pivotal point so far in my writing journey was probably in 9th grade, where my family was going through a really hard time, and so I was struggling a lot emotionally, and so I feel like during that time I really dug into writing and, tried to use it as sort of an escape for everything. As cliche as that sounds, but it's just like, and so I just started writing more, and then I just started reading more, and I feel like that really propelled me into like taking writing seriously, and like actually putting myself on the path that I am now today on. And I feel like at the time, like I kind of writing took on meaning for me, and then I was reading like years later how someone is like in a craft book, how someone was talking about how writing is not about being emotional. It's like an escape from emotion. And I feel like at first I didn't really understand that. I was like, what? But then the more I thought about it, and then the more I thought about how it related to me, it actually made a lot of sense. And I feel like that's kind of what it was for me. And so, yeah, like, even though it was really difficult for me at that time, it really shaped a lot of who I am now. And yeah.
That's awesome. And I think that's cool to know. The reason I like questions like that about like reflection is, I mean, I like doing it personally, but I also think it's really cool to look back and say, what was like, how do I perceive where I am now based on where I started? And so to take a difficult experience and find writing and then actually say, wait, this is something I really like to do, and it also helps me and could be something that's a long-term like career or thing that you do. I think that's really cool. And to be able to recognize that in your history is awesome too. Okay, so I have 2 more questions. One is, so I know we've talked about how family is very key into your work and like narrative pieces are big for you. What are some other like trends that you see in your stuff? I saw wisteria pop up a couple times, and I know that I didn't realize I was a hyacinth person until I tried to read a couple. I really didn't. I had 3 poems that I wanted to read one night, and I was like, they all say hyacinth. Like I can't read them all at once. But until that day, I had no clue that I had a favorability for that particular flower in my work. So do you see other, maybe not flowers, but other things outside of family narrative and wisteria, that one aside, shows up in your writing sometimes?
Yeah, so I feel like I might be a little like the odd one out when it comes to trends, because I actually don't like it when certain words appear over and over again in my work. I feel like that just makes me uncomfortable. Like I always want to I want new. I want like something fresh. I want something new in my work, and I don't want to keep on like returning to the same words. I want surprise, and I want to like push myself and push the boundaries. So yeah, once I realized I was using Wisteria too much, I was like, no, goodbye.
Yeah, well, and actually, like when the last poem I wrote with Hyacinth is the one, like it recently, or I don't know, but point is, I was like, well, that is obviously a flower that is off the table. Like I got to vary myself a little.
Yeah.
Truthfully, I wrote them all so separately that I didn't even notice until I went to go read them all, and I said, not, I didn't say anything bad. Okay, and then the last question that I have for you, it's not necessarily writing related, though it arguably is. So we have differing opinions about Emma, unless something has changed, because I watched the new one this year with Anya Taylor-Joy and Johnny Flynn, and I loved it, but that was not listed as your favorite online. It's the 2009 miniseries, which I also really like because you get more time to spend with the characters because it's a longer space. And I think I first watched that 2 years ago, and it became like a soft spot. I would just put it on while I was working and doing data entry, and I was like, oh, Emma, you're over there. So I'm curious if with that new entrance into the Jane Austen world, if your opinion has changed at all.
Okay, so I did watch the 2020 version, because I promised a friend that I would like write a blog post comparing the 2009 version and the 2020 version, and I kept on putting that off for like 6 months, so that was not good. But I did eventually watch it, and I the 2009 one is still my favorite. But I do think that there are like pros and cons to each of the films. I do like the quality of the 2020 film. Everything's like very clear. It's very, the costumes are historically accurate. The backdrops are just beautiful. And it is definitely like it's listed in the humor category, so I think it definitely has a lot more moments of humor compared to the 2009 version.
Yeah.
But like that aside, I feel like Anya Joy and Johnny just like didn't have any chemistry at all. And I could be totally biased, but I just feel like, okay, let me just focus on on Anya Joy for a second. So Anya Joy, the way she portrayed Emma is just like, compared to Ramallah, it's just like I feel like I know Emma is supposed to be like kind of aloof and like, you know, a little pretentious and all that stuff, but I feel like Ramallah had that like charm and almost like playful innocence that made her more likable than the way Anya Joy portrayed her. And I feel like and then in terms of the chemistry between Emma and, wow, I'm totally blanking on his name.
It took me like Mr. Knightley.
Knightley, yeah. So
it took me a second too. I was like, I know the actors, but I can't tell you.
Yeah, so okay, so both scenes have that like dancing scene. And then if you compare the two dancing scenes, I feel like I was reading some YouTube comments about it, and then it was like, oh, the 2009 version is more like playful, and it's like, you know, that like best friends to lovers kind of trope, and then the 2021 is more like sensual. But I feel like the 2020 version, it was just like, I found it kind of cringy, and like I was like, ooh, at times. And then I just feel like in general for the 2020 version, I just feel like there's no chemistry. I feel like Anya just hated Johnny for like half the film until the very end. And then another big part is the music, which, because I like play piano and I play flute, and I feel like music is a very big part of a film. Yeah. So like, for example, the 2009 Pride and Prejudice version, that music is like I no words. And in similar ways, the 2009, the 2005 Pride and Prejudice, so then the 2009 Emma, the music is just so beautiful. It's like so light and fun, And the music for the dance scene is also just like very, very, I feel like it's part of the reason why it kind of like sparked the chemistry, sort of. It like played a big role in like the chemistry, at least for me. And I feel like when everything kind of like falls into place, like the music and the chemistry and the actors, I feel like that's really what makes me love a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the 2020 version just kind of fell short of that. But there were definitely like other pros.
I think personally of the 2020 version, I liked how they portrayed Knightley, because I think you got to see that he was emotionally distraught in some areas, which you don't see in any of the other renditions. And I was like, that wasn't even something I realized but could have been happening, because they never focused on it in the previous. So that was one of the ones that I was like, oh, I actually like that little in knowledge when he
I did like that.
Exasperated. I was like, wait, why didn't I see that before? But yeah, well, thank you. I will have to rewatch it. I watched it 3 times. We ordered it and only had it for like 3 days. And so I watched it 3 times to make sure I got my money's worth. And so I'll have to order it again and watch it.
Yeah.
But it was so great to talk with you today, Grace. Thank you so much for coming on here and speaking with me and answering all of these questions.
Of course.
We are so happy to have Motherworld in our 17th issue. And I'm so happy that I got to experience your work again in a new light and reintroduce myself to you. And everybody, like we already dropped the website, but I'm going to do it again. It's gracesong.weebly.com, and you can find Grace's work and other things along with photography. We didn't even get into that, but there's a lot of great stuff on her website, and you should really check it out and follow her on Twitter as well. All right. Thank you, everybody. And thank you so much, Grace.